Testing. Are we on? Testing. Are we on? Okay. I think we're good. Hi there. Welcome back. Run Your Mouth Podcast. It's nice to have you here. And right off the bat, I got a question for you. Write this down. Get out your notepad. Get your pen and paper. Be ready for this question. Where's the safe and effective guy? You guys remember last week when I was like, hey, listen, whoever's out there saying safe and effective, if it's not safe and effective, listen, government's doing everything that they need to do to try and make me look good. I know someone up in government, they got the memo. They're like, there's this guy, Robbie the Fire. He likes podcasting from his car. No one realizes that he predicts everything right. So we're going to do this new thing where we're going to sit down every week. We're going to listen to the Run Your Mouth podcast, and whatever he says, we're just going to make it true the next week, and then maybe over time, people realize that this guy's like a fucking prophet, and he gets everything right, and we'll take Johnson & Johnson off the market. I mean, how do you guys, like, that's a tough spot. Whoever's that guy, you know, and like the footage is coming in, and the people are feigning, and he's got to get out there, and he's like, hey, what am I supposed to, just safe and effective? And then, you know, reports people are dying. They're like, hey, am I still just safe and effective? We're not going with like, hey, we're going to take a look at this thing, or hi guys, we're taking a look at the numbers and we still think that, you know, this is a good idea. These are freak occurrences, but we're taking a watchful eye, or hey guys, we understand that you want to get vaccinated and that you want to make decisions about your own risk. We personally still think Johnson & Johnson's pretty good, but we want to let you start actually picking your vaccines, and maybe, or how about Johnson & Johnson's pretty good, but it seems to be a little bit of a risk category for, no, they just went with, hey, it's safe and effective. Safe and effective, and then, shit, we better not put that out anymore. Which just means that when they were saying safe and effective, and they should have been like, oh, maybe we should take a look at this, they were lying to you. So, you know, just don't think that they're ever not lying to you. If anyone ever comes and they're like, why aren't you taking this vaccines, or why don't you have perfect faith in government, you can just be like, well, don't you remember safe and effective guy? I wish we could actually put a face to the name. If you're out there and you've got some real journalism skills or Googling skills, or, you know, you're just lonely and you want to send me an email, robsnewsroom@gmail.com, hit me up. And maybe we can find out who specifically was the guy who was out there, you know, telling the newspapers safe and effective. And so while we're talking about Johnson & Johnson, which turned out to be more like safe and blood clotty, maybe that's what they should have gone with, here is a little piece from a Reuters article. Other panel members and advisors, however, expressed concern that extending the pause could worsen issues related to equitable access to the vaccine, which is seen as important for serving hard-to-reach communities because it can be stored at normal refrigerator temperatures and given as one dose instead of two. Here's a quote. Any extension of the pause will invariably result in the fact that the most vulnerable individuals in the United States will remain vulnerable. Continuing. Several panel members wanted to vote to extend the pause by as much as a month, but Dr. Beth Pell, a global health expert at the University of Washington, argued that would send a signal globally of a major issue with the vaccine. It's not that whether or not there actually is a issue with the vaccine or if a couple people might die in the midterm, but if we can just keep pretending like everything's fine, let's stay the course. I don't want to send the message, this is back to the quote, that there is something fundamentally wrong with this vaccine which I don't agree with. And if a couple people have to die between now and then and us actually figuring out if this one's as safe as the other ones, you know, we're all about selling some vaccines here, so everyone's got to toe the party line. Continuing with her quotes, this is no longer me talking. It's a very rare event, Bell said, of the case of blood clots in the brain, known as cerebral venous sinus thrombosis, CVST for short, along with low blood platelets. Quote, nothing is risk-free. And isn't it amazing how these people do understand, you know, the principles of risk and reward? When they were trying to sell us on shutting down the country, it was, you know, no loss of life is acceptable. There's no concept of risk for reward. There's no concept of the fact that everything has some inherent danger and we should leave it to people to make their own decisions. But now, when it comes to getting the vaccines out there that kill people, nothing is risk-free. And I also like the fact that these people readily admit that poor people might like the riskier option because riskier options are a little bit less expensive. And when it comes to healthcare, we can't afford everything. We can't get equal access to everybody. So maybe people should be able to make their own decisions about pricing and risk. And people who would otherwise have zero access might be willing to pay for a slightly riskier, lower standard of care. And you guys might be listening to that and going, man, that sounds kind of evil. But guess what? We can't afford everything for everybody. And these people know it. And it is amazing how they'll invoke certain principles basically when it's convenient and they're trying to sell you something. Like, we should just kind of have an actual conversation about, like, principles and do we stand by them, but instead what the way you do is they just kind of invoke whatever makes sense for what they're trying to sell. And as long as we're talking about trying to sell something, why not try and sell you some Yo Kratom? It's the home of the $60 kilo. You know, if you're listening to the Run Your Mouth podcast, you already know that you can get a kilo for $60, but maybe you haven't decided to invest yet. Maybe you're reluctant. Maybe you're looking what's going on in the Kratom market and you think, is this thing already at all-time highs? Is $60 for a kilo the highest that Kratom's going to go? Maybe I should put my money into Dogecoin. Maybe I should put it into Coinbase. Maybe I should put it under my mattress and hope that I don't wet the bed. I think you can still spend your currency if you accidentally piss on it. Also, you'd have a lot of mattress for that urine to actually drip through before the currency started to absorb some urine. And I bet, how well do you think a US dollar absorbs some urine? Maybe run that experiment. You know, maybe you're bored. Maybe even though all these women are getting horny because they're vaccinated and they're like, wow, I can finally go out there and get myself some penises again. But you, instead of doing any of that, instead of making plans next weekend, why don't you pee on a dollar bill and let it like sit in the sun for a day, see if it smells like urine, and then see if you can spend it in a store. Just as an experiment, you know? The scientists aren't being scientists anymore. Science used to be about running experiments. Now it's just about listening to Fauci and trusting people, even if they have no reasons or they haven't run any experiments. They just go, hey, 3 masks, 4 masks, maybe we'll get up to 7 masks, then we'll do no masks. Have we done any studies on this? No, but we're scientists, and that's the way science works now, is we just say things. So we've got to bring back experiments and the way that science actually works. And so the hypothesis is, how well does the US dollar absorb urine, and can you spend it after you've peed on it? So go test that, because otherwise we should probably get the word out there to bedwetters that you don't want to keep your dollars underneath your mattress, or maybe you can at least just put in some Ziploc. I was trying to do an ad read here, though, for Yo Kratom, telling you might think that the Kratom market's at all-time highs, and you are wrong. Kratom, it's going up. 2022 is going to be the year of the Kratom, where suddenly inflation hits. You can't quite get the stuff in from the boats because they've got more of these female pilots who like clogging up the Suez Canal. I thought that was so funny. Whatever happened, there was some female. There's like one lady who I guess is captain of those giant freighter ships. And in Egypt, they put out an article that she was the one that caused the Suez Canal blockage, and she's not the captain of that ship, which is great. You know, that's the fun. In our country, I guess the propaganda is all against white men, but there's something funny when it's maybe, I don't know where I'm going with this one. Just buy Yo Kratom, moving on with the episode. But before I move on with the episode, I'd like to remind you guys, I got some live dates. I might even update my website. Have you checked out my website? You just got to go to RobbieTheFire.com. I got a spreadsheet with some live dates. I know some of you guys are hitting me up. You can't find Childerberg. And that's part of the adventure of Childerberg is you got to get in your car. You just got to go to Texas. You got to show up to Austin. It's like a treasure hunt where you just got to ask around. And then, you go up to random people and you're like, I'm looking for the Fagcast. And they're like, I don't think they're even going by that name anymore. But the point is, just get in your car, just head down to Texas, show up to Austin, and just ask people where the Unknown Podcast Festival is going on in the woods. Or you could just hit them up on Twitter. They're very responsive. You just message the Childerberg account. They'll get back to you with the details. I saw someone in the Part of the Problem YouTube comments. They got the link in there. So come on out. Texas, Childerberg. That's sometime in May. I don't even know the dates. Man, am I bad at plugging. And then I also got Portland. I'm going to be going Mecox Unite. We're going to be, me and Kyle are going to be doing a gig at the Libertarian, state convention. So come out for that. And then we're starting to set up summer porch tour dates. So be on the lookout for that. All right, moving on. The war bells are drumming. Things are getting hot. Of course, Biden can't hear it because he's just walking around the Oval Office going, gosh darn it, is the thing? Wait, who's doing what to who? Because apparently when our president is using all of his mental energy to squint at a teleprompter, everyone's like, this is our moment. We can get away with it. You know, Russia, it's been sitting there, it's eyeballing Ukraine like a drunk chick at the end of the night. It's like, she's showing me her nickels. I can see them nickels. They're just hanging out of that. You look at this sloppy lady, the shirt's hanging down. I can get all that lithium. It's right there. And China's like, Taiwan, that's ours. It's always been ours. You keep saying Taiwan is Taiwan. But no, Taiwan is China. And Taiwan's like, no, we're definitely not China. But let's be honest. These Taiwanese people, they're pretty close to China. I mean, they're so close to China. I almost start thinking they're China. I mean, they probably got nice beaches, and China's got really powerful. And, you know, how powerful you got to get where you just want to be like, I just want to conquer something, and it's right there. And I'm pretty sure that that's really China. And Taiwan's like, no, we're not China. But, you know, with Biden, just unclear how much energy in the White House is just going into making it seem like Biden's still alive. And when you've got to put all your resources into trying to pretend like your president's still, you know, a functional human being, sometimes you leave the openings for these other countries to be like, all right, this is my moment. And then, of course, you got Israel and Iran, and they're like, dude, if China's get to take Taiwan and Russia gets to take over Ukraine, we want to finally have this fight. I mean, this thing's been 30 years in the making. We've been going back and forth with hackers and proxy terrorists and Hezbollah and funding whatever in the region. And, you know, I don't know, get Dana White out there promoting that fight. Iran, Israel, I mean, this thing, it's going to have to go down at some point. And so if Russia gets started with Ukraine, China gets started with Taiwan, and then the problem is the U.S. generals, they start sitting on the sideline and they're like, put me in, coach. Put me in. I'm ready. Let me bomb some shit. I got the best bombs, coach. Coach, if everyone else is fighting, I want to get out there. I want to bomb some shit too. And it's moments like these when everything seems tense in the world. You need like a Michael Scott type character, just some idiot who can cool tensions, almost like a Donald Trump. Maybe that's what we need. Someone like Donald Trump who could just show up and go, listen, why don't we all just eat some McDonald's, okay? I'll get us some milkshakes. We'll get peed on by some hookers, okay? We can all relax, okay? We can all have some fun. It's going to be... We can have the best 100 years just getting peed on by hookers, getting along, okay? In other news, this just came from Nancy Pelosi. When asked if she was frightened during the January 6th incident, the House Speaker said, well, I'm pretty tough. I'm a street fighter. They would have had a battle on their hands, and that's because she really is a vampire. The proof is in. This lady's got baby blood flowing through her veins. She didn't give a shit. She was like, I fear no man. You know, she's like, come into my office, make my day. And how great of a movie would that be? It's like a Tarantino style, Django Unchained, revenge porn type film where, you know, they break into the Capitol building and Nancy Pelosi just goes, I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me. And then the fangs come out. I could see it. Here's the opening scene. Guy breaks into her office. They think they have her cornered. But then her face starts to change. The fangs come out and boom, in a flash of an eye, she's at the guy's throat. She sucks him dry. She kills the other guy, slices off his head clean. Boom, blood splurts all over. And she just flies off into the hallway. Next group of people come. They realize, oh my God, this is Nancy Pelosi's office. They open up the door and she's not there. But there's corpses. There's blood everywhere. And that's when everyone realizes they got a problem on their hands. The army comes in, and they got to contain it. So they lock the doors. Word gets in. There's a direct line to the army if Nancy Pelosi has an above-ground vampire incident. Usually they keep her underground for the feedings. But this time, you know, it wasn't prepared. Usually she's not allowed around people unless she's totally filled up with baby blood. But these protesters, they didn't realize whose door they were knocking on. So the army comes in, right? And they contain the Capitol building. They show up. They've got a secret Nancy Pelosi containment unit. It's like in the Hulk movies where they got the Tony Stark's got the Hulk kits. They got to lock down the building. And then Nancy Pelosi's in there. And she's gone straight Rambo. She's walking around like, they broke first doors. And then it cuts to some guy and Nancy Pelosi flies into the hallway and he's just there alone. It's like a horror movie where he's trying to find the exits and then she's right in front of him and he's like, I was just walking into the building. I was just walking. But then Nancy takes off her fucking throat and then everyone's trying to run. They're trying to get out of this building. They're like, where's the exit? Where's the exit? But it's a Godzilla movie at this point. Nancy's just flying around like a vampire, slicing off everybody's throats, taking them, killing them all. And that's my movie pitch. If you're out there, movie producer, robsnewsroom@gmail.com, or more likely the lady's just super delusional and probably too dumb to be making decisions. I'm not saying she's like Biden-level delusional and stupid, but stupid enough where she thinks she's getting into a fight with people and winning, which makes no sense, because more likely someone would open up the door and she'd think like, I've taken this one karate class, and she'd get up into her karate stance and go, and then her hip would just break. She would just fold over, crack right in half. It would be like a broken slinky, just, hip break, and she'd still be alive, but her head would then be upside down, and she'd be like, can you please help me and get me a clean pair of Depends before the hospital people show up? And next topic, but before we get into a next topic, wouldn't this be a wonderful time to learn about sheath underwear? Have you been sitting here this entire podcast wondering, when is it that we'll finally talk about the finest underwear in all of America? I come to this podcast, I don't care about the news, I just want the update on sheath underwear. Are they still out there supporting people's dicks? Are they still out there with a pouch that you can put your wiener into and a little thing that you can put in your nuts into, so that if you're out exercising or you've got a Johnson and balls that are flopping all over the place, they're constantly mushed up against each other, getting all sweaty to the point that when you pull them off because you want to take a piss, the guy at the stall next to you is like, man, that is one sweaty, sticky dick. What are you doing with that penis that thing stinks and sweats so much? And you're like, oh man, I didn't realize I had sweaty dick syndrome. That's going to be like a new thing. We'll make this ad. It'll be like those late night, pharmaceutical commercials, which are, have you recently met up with a girl on Tinder and she was going to blow you until she took a whiff of your dick? Well, you might suffer from sweaty dick syndrome. The disease where instead of sweat coming out your armpits, it goes right out of your dick glands. And, this is totally normal. It happens to plenty of people, and that's why we want to tell you about sheath underwear, because as long as you're keeping your dick away from your balls, you're giving it a fighting chance to not smell like some football player who played a lot of games and his ass crack stinks a lot. So anyways, that's the ad read for sheath underwear. Go to sheathunderwear.com, use the promo code RYM, you get 20% off. And sheathing is cool. You get your sheath on, you feel like you've got good energy. It's good for working out, and they're comfortable underwear. And if you're not that into putting your dick into dick holes, maybe your girlfriend feels like that's cheating. She's like, listen, I'm the only hole you should be putting your wiener into. And you're like, but it's underwear. It's not like we've got an emotional connection. She goes, I saw you talking to that pair of underwear the other day. I saw you texting with that sheath. I know what it means to you, and I don't feel... Well, you can tell her, listen, I'm not even putting my dick in the sheath hole. I'm just wearing this like it's normal underwear. I know that the sheath hole is there. I know that it's available to me, but it's not like that. It's not that kind of a relationship. I just wear these as normal boxer briefs. Promo code RYM, and you get 20% off. Next topic. Are you guys enjoying the corporate temper tantrum in Atlanta? Basically, government went to these corporations and they went, guys, we're going to need all hands on deck on pretending like this voting policy is racist. We believe in a democracy. These are the companies like, we believe in a democracy where if we support Democrats at critical times, they'll give us bailouts when we need them. And that's why us at BlackRock, the incredible, powerful firm backed by Fed money and receiver of bailouts for junk bonds and whatever else the special purpose vehicles were for, because they don't really quite make sense to me. But BlackRock is going like, so what do you need us to speak out about? All right, well, we're downright outraged. Yes, the government not being able to provide ID to people that probably need ID for other activities in their lives is not a racist policy, but the fact that the same exact people who government is keeping from getting an ID, we're not going to solve that problem, but the fact that they're voting and we've got a system here where we can't validate people because you're saying you don't even need an ID, the thing that you need for just about everything else, well, that's the racist policy, and so it's all hands on deck because we got to make sure that the Democrats remain in control so that they'll continue funneling money through us, and then we can continue going to other firms and saying, hey, you got enough ladies in management here? Because otherwise you're not getting a loan. Hey, are you, investing in green energy? Hey, are you a part of the cause of pretending like unless we're doing that... We're moving away from freedom or economic growth or open markets, and we're moving more towards putting resources only towards people that will talk about items like systemic racism, or basically we found a way of financing the left's agenda. and I'm in conspiracy theory space here, but if you go back down the RYM archive, do you guys remember when I was talking about how the Fed policy, there was talk about them inserting that they're not just going to be working on this full employment versus inflation thing, which even that they can't do, but also policies that are going to specifically lift up minority communities. We're going to institute that, things that are in the fringe of the left that have not become I guess normal thought, and it's also just socialism. We're now going to implement into policies behind closed doors. Well, I'm telling you, I think what's going on here is that there's so much money flowing from government. Government is now your best customer. It's not about participating in the market. It's not about offering valuable services that people want. It's about making sure that your team in government is in power and will get you bailouts or other things that you need at critical junctures in time. Or that there's just so much money flowing from the Fed through banks like BlackRock that the only way that you're ever going to be able to remain solvent or get loans or financing or not just be overtaken by competitors that have these things is if you play ball. And part of playing ball right now is that they want this new socialist world, and so you better play into some of these fringe political ideas of, whatever your laundry list of dumb leftist bullshit is. And all right, I get it. This is I don't have all of the pieces lined up here. We're in a little bit of the conspiracy theory space. And I'll call myself out for that. I'll call myself out when I'm not completely informed. But lucky for me, the Biden administration actually listens to this podcast. And so if they're not currently doing this, they're going to be like, holy shit, that's actually a really good idea. If we can get a lot of money being only handed to people that will regurgitate the same things that we're trying to propagate the people with, then it will be even louder. It won't just be coming from government. It won't just be coming from the press. It will actually be coming from companies as well, who you might have otherwise thought were interested in profits, and they're going to get a lot of cash into these things so that everybody, is basically you're policed to the point where if you're not you don't have these opinions, you're not really working for the leftist agenda, it's like me and a comedy career. You can't have it. You realize you're on the wrong side of opinions, and so you can never get funding for a project. You'll never get on a TV show. Or maybe that's just my excuse. But anyways, for all of you out there listening, thinking, oh man, he's putting forward some crazy conspiracy theories here, I want to read this to you. This is a article from the Wall Street Journal. BlackRock profit inflow surge. Asset manager posts 49% earnings rise as investors look towards pandemic recovery. Isn't that convenient? The firm that got to process all of the Fed money to all the other big banks that are making some good money this year, their earnings managed to rise somehow during coronavirus environment while the country's shut down. Somehow these guys have managed to make investments that have brought them there's that many growth and opportunities for returns in the market. Their whole commercial mortgage portfolio is up. Everything is doing well. That their returns are 49% higher because we all know how the economy's cooking this year. And so it would make sense that, all right, let's continue. BlackRock Inc.'s quarterly profit rose 49% as the giant asset manager benefited from surging markets and investors' willingness to bet on an economic recovery. The firm posted a first quarter profit of $1.2 billion or $7.77 a share, up from $806 million or $5.15 a share a year earlier. BlackRock's revenue rose 19% to $4.4 billion from $3.7 billion in the year ago period when panicked investors fled to cash while a pandemic rippled through the globe. So that's just talking to the power of BlackRock. I think a couple years ago, the players were JP Morgan Chase. They were Goldman Sachs, and these are still players. But I don't know what goes on behind the scenes that some of these people manage to get the guys from their firm into the administration. I'm actually reading what's his name's book, which I've been reading for too long because I pretend like I sit down every night to read, and then it really just only happens once a week. But I'm reading Rothbard's The History of Money and Banking, and there's an interesting storyline in there. I'd love to make it a movie one day about how the Fed came to be, but there's a period of time where the JP Morgans were competing with I want to say it was the Rockefellers where they're both trying to get their people into government to make sure that there are policies that are going to help their banks or get rid of investment banking from the other guy. They're just doing everything they can with the power of government to basically destroy their competitors until at one point they decide, hey, why don't we just join together, make this Fed, and everybody wins. And it's the same stuff going on now, where it's basically this revolving door where you got to get people from your firm into government. It's no different than the military-industrial complex or what Fauci probably is to the pharmaceutical companies, which I don't actually have any evidence of. But hey, I told you straight up that I'm talking conspiracy theories now. I'm talking about the themes the way I think I see them with absolutely no factual evidence whatsoever. And that's what we do on this show. You can listen to another show if you want more factual evidence. So I think what I was trying to say is that I believe that BlackRock, for the next couple of years through the Biden administration, they're going to be the biggest player. They're going to be the ones who are processing the most Fed money, getting all that good bailout cash, and that's why they're, really profitable. But let's continue, because now we're going to get into this leftist agenda thing that I was talking about. After Mr. Fink helped usher in a revolution in ETFs, his next big bet is in riding on investors' interest in companies with higher environmental, social, and corporate governance rankings. BlackRock already provides technology to help banks and investors account for environmental risks and is aggressively aiding to ESG-themed funds. Technology services revenue, which include fees from the firm's software suite, also known as Aladdin, rose by 12%. BlackRock recently cut a deal with a group of banks to link its own corporate lending costs more closely to achieving goals such as women in senior leadership and boosting assets and sustainability-themed funds. The move signaled BlackRock's view to Wall Street that it's possible to measure the financial consequences of environmental or workplace goals. End of the article, or more likely, really powerful people are really invested in this story that we have to shut down worldwide economic growth in the name of the environment. And since they can't win these arguments or convince people of it, nor is it in line with the way a free market would operate. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to start funneling Fed money through this firm called BlackRock. And the deal is that as long as they're on board with only financing things that fall into almost what would be like a Chinese social credit type thing of the way you feel about promoting women in leadership roles or only taking on projects that are environmentally friendly, well, then that's the only way that you're going to get money. And we're going to pretend like it's a free market where this is some bank that's just going to make these investments. But how can you pretend like they're just some bank when go look back at what happened with the fucking repo market and SPVs and them bailing out their own junk bonds? So listen, call me a fucking conspiracy theorist. Tell me I don't have any of all the facts lined up here, or that, I'm just giving nefarious attentions to people that are actually trying to in some way help the world or help the environment. But I'm just telling you, that's straight up in a Wall Street Journal article, and people might not be putting the cynical spin that I am on what's happening, but I'm pretty sure that right before our very eyes, the Biden administration is doing everything within its power to really enact laws that promote, like, by the way, there was a law that passed last week, something to do with enforcement that women, need to be making the same amount as men, which, that's just debunked. Just go talk to any, it's just not true. It's not true. Women leave the workforce because they're having kids. They don't put as much risk on their plate. And I also think you got a lot of, you got a lot of men who, I don't want to get into that topic. I wasn't prepared to talk about that topic. I want to do one last thing and then get to our guest, because this has already been a longer intro than I expected. But they're talking about packing the Supreme Court. That's the other thing that they're looking to do. The Democrats are in power now, so they're thinking, hey, let's get more of our people on so that we can control the court. Then who knows, maybe 4 years from now, the conservatives take it back over. They start putting their people on it. And then the Democrats come back. And then the next thing you know, all of us can have jobs on the Supreme Court. This can become the new Bernie Sanders move to get everyone a job. We'll all work for the Supreme Court. We'll all get our paychecks. We'll all feel like we're powerful people. And of course, the line they're trying to go with is they stole the court from us first. So now we've got to restore the integrity of it. And it's not about having different branches of government. I get to make the one decision about the integrity of an organization. And you know what? I'm just looking at it and I'm thinking, have we really explored all the options on trying to prove that the current Supreme Court justices engaged in sexual assault. Because before we start trying to change the rules and completely, I mean, the Supreme Court, well, I mean, to what extent are they really enforcing the Constitution? I've read through some of these documents where churches are coming in there and they're like, listen, why are we not allowed to be open? Those other people are going to be, and then they don't even want to get into the power grab. They say it blatantly, at least the conservative justice, that we don't even want to rule about whether or not government can power grab at all. But here's why specifically the church thing would not be an equal application of them overstepping the, like, we think they're overstepping and they shouldn't be able to do any of these laws, but we're not going to rule on that. We are going to rule on the fact that if they, within the framework of them overstepping, they seem to be an unequal, and by the way, it's going to take us an entire year before we can make this evaluation that, certain companies that I guess are in the pockets of the politicians, like, the film industry or airlines, that they get to continue to go on, but the churches can't. We'll just say, all right, this is an unequal application of your bogus laws, but we're not actually going to look into. So the point is, the Supreme Court's a fucking sham, but talk about it being like a super sham when they start packing it. And if we're talking about packing stuff, let's do one last plug. Yo Kratom, home of the $60 kilo sheath underwear. Promo code RYM, you get 20% off.